Margaret Harlow had been dead for less than 10 hours when her son handed her daughter the papers. He waited until the last mourners had gone, then stepped close at the graveside, envelope in hand.
Mom signed the farm over to me. Charlotte, it's all legal.
Before the stroke, she could barely hold a spoon.
He pressed the envelope into her palm, his fingers tightening until the paper creased.
I managed the place, Charlotte. She understood that. This is what she wanted.
Back at the farmhouse, Charlotte sat at the kitchen table and unfolded the bill of sale. The signature, Margaret Harlow, was a jagged scrawl, nothing like the cursive she remembered from birthday cards.
Don't make this harder than it has to be. The buyer's already waiting.
If that's her name, then I don't know whose hand wrote it. This isn't her handwriting, Kenneth. Mom's letters were rounded and careful, not this shaky scribble.
She was sick, Charlotte. The stroke affected everything. I stood by her when you were miles away.
Who witnessed it? Those names, I don't recognize them. Who was there?
A notary from the bank and a neighbor. It's all legitimate. You're grasping at straws.
Charlotte didn't believe him, but she saw no point in arguing further tonight.
There's a buyer ready to close by month's end. You'll get a fair share if you don't cause trouble.
The old clock on the mantel ticked as Kenneth's footsteps retreated down the hall. When the house fell quiet, she moved to the roll-top desk where her mother kept stationery.
These birthday cards she sent me. The handwriting still smooth and strong, even 2 years ago.
She folded the card into her pocket, the first real evidence that might prove a lie. The next morning, a black SUV with magnetic real estate decals rolled to a stop by the barn. Kenneth stepped out, and a man in a polo shirt pulled a fresh for sale sign from the back. Before Charlotte could finish her coffee, the post hole digger bit into the lawn and the sign went up.
He's not giving me a day to breathe. That sign is his final answer. You didn't waste any time, did you?
Miss Harlow, your brother has full authority. I'm just here to make sure everything runs smoothly.
The buyer wants to walk the property this weekend. I told you it was moving fast.
And I told you that signature isn't right. You expect me to just stand by while you sell what isn't yours?
It is mine. And if you keep interfering, you'll get nothing.
Dad would have known what to do. And maybe Frank Lawson still does.
That afternoon, she drove toward the edge of the county, where Frank Lawson's porch faced a windbreak of pines. He was in the rocking chair with a coffee mug, retired badge still clipped to his vest.
You've got the same look your father had when something was eating him. Sit down.
Kenneth says Mom signed the farm to him right before the stroke. I'm holding a bill of sale that doesn't feel true.
Your daddy never trusted Kenneth with the land. That's why he came to me back in 19. He had me witness a will. I don't know where it is, but he swore it would surface if anyone tried to take what wasn't theirs. Check his old wool barn coat. He never let that coat out of his sight.
The coat. Hanging in the closet all this time, heavy enough to hide anything.
She thanked him and drove back as the sun dipped below the corn, a new sharpness in her chest.
Dad planned for this. He left me a weapon, and I'm going to find it.
She climbed the narrow stairs to her father's old room, now a cluttered storage space. The closet door stuck, then gave, revealing a row of forgotten coats. The wool barn coat hung at the back.
That's it. I remember the day he last wore it, walking the fence line in the rain.
She lifted it from the hanger, heavy. Her fingers traced a rectangular bulge near the hem.
Dad sewed something into this coat. He never did anything without a reason.
Then she heard it, footsteps on the landing, and Kenneth's voice.
Charlotte, what are you doing upstairs? This floor's supposed to be locked.
I'm just looking through Dad's things. Grief works in strange ways, doesn't it?
She thrust the coat behind a stack of boxes and pushed past him into the hall.
He can't know. I'll be back tonight when the house is asleep.
Kenneth followed her down to the kitchen, his boots heavy on the old wood, the threat unspoken but thick.
You think I didn't see what you were doing? You've never cared about this place until money was on the table.
I cared enough to come home when you called. I'm sorry I wasn't here to manage things the way you wanted.
The buyer from Des Moines is coming Saturday. If you try anything stupid, you'll leave here with nothing.
He's scared. That's why he's waving this buyer like a shield.
She held her tongue until he slammed the screen door and his truck roared away, gravel spitting under the tires. Then she waited, through the long afternoon, through a silent supper, until the last light bled from the sky.
After dark, he won't come back. The code is still behind those boxes.
The farmhouse settled into its nighttime groans. She knew it was time.
I'm not sleeping tonight. Not until I know what Dad sewed into that lining.
She slipped back into the storage room, pulling the heavy wool coat from behind the boxes where she'd hidden it. Under the single bare bulb, she spread the coat flat and worked the scissors into the worn lining seam. Threads parted with a whisper. A thick envelope, yellowed and sealed with red wax, slid into her waiting hands. Her father's handwriting was unmistakable on the front. Last will and testament of Thomas Howard Harlow. She broke the wax and unfolded the stiff document, the kitchen below silent as a held breath. I, Thomas Harlow, leave Harlow Farm and all its land to my daughter Charlotte May Harlow, this 12th day of October, 2019.
He planned this 4 years ago. He knew Kenneth would try to take it.
Below the text, 2 signatures, Thomas Harlow, Margaret Harlow, and the notary's seal, witnessed by Frank Lawson.
Kenneth's bill of sale is nothing. This is everything.
She pressed the will to her chest for a long moment, then picked up her phone. Frank had to hear this. The clock on the mantel read well past midnight when the call finally connected.
Frank? It's Charlotte. I found it Dad's will sewn into the lining of his old coat.
A long pause, then a low exhale from a man who had kept a secret for 4 years.
Your daddy made me swear I wouldn't speak unless someone tried to steal what was yours.
He left me the farm. The whole farm, Frank. Mom signed it too. It's notarized.
She read him the key lines, her voice steady now, the words settling like concrete.
Kenneth's bill won't stand a minute in court. I'll testify, Charlotte. I was there.
She thanked him, the weight in her chest shifting from fear to something resembling fury.
I have a witness, a notary, and the truth. Kenneth has a piece of paper with a lie.
She hung the empty coat back on its hook and walked to the phone book. By morning, she would find a lawyer. By 8 that morning, she was seated in a Cedar Rapids attorney's office, the original will spread across a mahogany desk. The lawyer examined every stamp, every signature, then looked up with a calm certainty. After a brief review, he handed her the notarized filing forms. The will was airtight, a textbook holographic testament. They drove straight to the county courthouse and filed the probate petition that morning, freezing the title before lunch. 15 miles away, Kenneth Harlow leaned on the fence line, signing a preliminary purchase agreement with the buyer from Des Moines.
I'll have the title cleared next week, Jim. The farm's as good as sold.
The for sale sign reflected the morning sun, and Kenneth pocketed the signed pages without a flicker of doubt.
My sister's just emotional. She'll accept her share and be gone by spring.
He has no idea that every acre he just promised is already locked in my name.
Charlotte held the stamped court receipt in her hand, proof that the law had already decided the Harlow farm would stay where it belonged. The phone in Kenneth's truck lit up at 2:30. Jim Perry, his voice shaking.
What do you mean, title freeze? I signed that buyer yesterday.
20 minutes later, dust was still settling from his truck when the kitchen door crashed open.
What did you do, Charlotte? Did you forge something? The whole deal is dead.
I didn't forge anything. I found Dad's will, dated 2019. He left the farm to me.
You're lying. Mom signed that bill. She gave it to me.
She pulled the folded document from her jacket, holding it so the notary seal caught the light.
That's not real. That's not his signature.
He's shaking because he knows it is. And if he forged Mom's name on the sale, he'd do it again.
That evening, she dialed a number in Des Moines, Rebecca Vance, forensic document examiner. That afternoon, in the sterile light of Rebecca Vance's lab, Charlotte watched the forensic examiner go to work. Under the loupe, the shaky signature on the bill of sale told a story, one of hesitation, not illness.
Look at the pen lifts here. Here. This is a tracing, Charlotte. Someone copied your mother's name.
She projected the bill beside a known sample. The handwriting curves were mismatched at every joint.
The notary stamp isn't even close. It's a counterfeit embosser. The county doesn't have a record of it.
Then she pulled out the financial records Kenneth had submitted to prove his responsible management.
These checks all endorsed by the same traced hand, drawn from your mother's dementia care account.
The adding machine tape showed a final figure, $94,000, all funds redirected to a defunct ag startup.
He bled her dry while she was fading. The farm wasn't enough, he needed every last dollar.
Rebecca signed the report with a crisp pen. Charlotte had everything she needed to end this. She found him in the barn, pacing between hay bales. The report was a weight in her hand.
$94,000, Kenneth. You drained Mom's account while she couldn't remember her own name.
That's not. How did you get those? Those were private accounts.
The same hand that forged her name on the bill of sale endorsed every check. Rebecca Vance is prepared to testify.
It was for the business. I was going to pay it back. The startup would have saved this farm.
You stole from a dying woman to fund a venture that never opened its doors. There's no justification.
She was my mother, too. I managed everything while you were in the city. You can't just take it all.
His voice cracked, but Charlotte didn't waver. The betrayal was too deep.
Frank Lawson will testify about the real will. The forensic report is filed. The law can decide, Kenneth. I'm done.
She left him in the dust and silence, the barn suddenly colder than it had ever been. That afternoon, Frank Lawson's sworn affidavit landed at the courthouse. Thomas Harlow had always known his son was a corner cutter.
I heard Thomas say more than once that boy would sell the nails out of the barn if I let him.
Before the ink was dry, the buyer from Des Moines called Jim Perry in a panic, demanding his earnest money back.
Kenneth, they're filing a misrepresentation complaint. If this isn't settled, you'll lose your license.
It's her fault. She froze the title. I had a legal sale.
The contract's void. You signed it claiming clean title. I can't help you now.
The sale collapsed completely before sunset. The for sale sign lay on its side in the barn, and Jim's SUV never returned.
The farm is untouchable now. Dad's plan worked, but the law still has to finish this.
The court clerk stamped the affidavit into the probate file, a permanent chain of evidence linking Kenneth to the fraud. By dusk, the farm stood quiet, no sign, no buyer, no brother at the table. Only the Harlow name still carved in the gate. The probate hearing convened under the old county seal, a bare room charged with 4 years of secrets.
The signature on the bill of sale is a textbook tracing. Look at the pen lifts, the shaky arcs. This is a mechanical copy, not a natural hand.
She projected the side-by-side comparison, and the judge frowned at the erratic, jagged lines.
I was there in 2019. Thomas and Margaret Harlow signed that will willingly, and I applied my own notary stamp. They were both completely sound of mind. Thomas told me this farm goes to Charlotte, no matter what.
Under cross, Kenneth's counsel tried to rattle him, but Frank's steady answers only reinforced the truth. Then came the forgery evidence. Rebecca produced the bank checks with the identical traced endorsements. Kenneth's attorney objected, but the judge overruled, leaning forward to study every exhibit.
He sees it now. Even my brother's lawyer knows they've lost.
The judge took the matter under advisement, but before the gavel fell, the verdict was already written in the air. The gavel struck. The 2019 will was valid, the bill of sale void. The farm belonged to Charlotte May Harlow. The judge further ordered the county attorney to review the forged checks and notary stamp for possible criminal charges. Kenneth sat frozen, his defense crumbling as the judge's words sealed his fate. His attorney asked for leave, but the judge's tone left no room for appeal. Charlotte exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding.
The farm is mine. After everything, it's finally mine.
The Harlow farm sign still hung on the gate, but the name now meant something different. No for sale sign, no buyer. Only the land and the law. She drove through the gate, the gravel road familiar but now leading to her own front door. And for the first time, she crossed onto ground that was undeniably her own. The real estate commission suspended Kenneth's license that morning. Agrigrowth Solutions was already padlocked, its signs stripped from the door. By mid-morning, he was in the barn, throwing tools into cardboard boxes with a force that shook the walls. Charlotte stepped through the open bay, the scent of hay and rust thick around her.
You here to gloat, Charlotte? You win.
I came to tell you the county attorney has the case. You should call a lawyer.
For what? You've already taken the farm, the money, my license.
You took it from her, Kenneth. The care she needed, the money she earned. I just stopped you from taking the rest.
She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. He stared at her, then turned back to his packing, and the silence was heavier than any word. The barn door creaked as she left, the space filling with the sound of cardboard scraping against dirt. By mid-afternoon, Jim Perry's SUV returned. He wasn't planting a sign, he was yanking it out.
Deal's over. I'm out my commission, Kenneth. You'd better find a way to pay.
From the barn, Kenneth's curses echoed, but Jim only shook his head and kept working. Charlotte watched from the porch as he loaded the sign into his truck and drove away. The empty patch of dirt on the lawn was the only proof the sign had ever been there. She walked out into the fields, following the fence line she'd known since childhood.
I won the farm. But winning feels different when there's no one left to share it with.
At the corner post, she stopped, the same post her father had taught her to set straight.
He prepared for this day. I just wish he'd been here to see it.
She stood alone as dusk settled, the land stretching out in all directions hers. The next morning, a U-Haul truck reversed up to the barn, its back door groaning open. Kenneth emerged, carrying the first of many boxes, his face set in gray. From their porch across the road, the neighbors watched, curtains shifting. Charlotte stood on the farmhouse porch, arms crossed, watching but not moving. He didn't look at her, just loaded the truck like the farm was already a memory. When the last box was stacked, he pulled down the roll-up door and latched it. He walked to the driver's door, paused for a half second, then climbed inside without a word. The engine turned over, a low rumble that seemed to shake the gravel. Charlotte didn't wave. Her hands stayed in her jacket pockets, fingers curled around the folded wheel. The engine idled, the vibration reaching her through the porch boards. The U-Haul lurched forward, gravel crunching under its weight as it rolled past the barn. Charlotte stood frozen on the porch, her eyes tracking the truck as it gathered speed. A curtain of dust rose behind it, swallowing the license plate and then the gate. Only when the dust began to settle did she turn and walk inside, the screen door clapping shut. She crossed to the kitchen window, her silhouette framed by the pale morning. The U-Haul was a dark shape shrinking against the cornfields, already almost a memory. Beside her, on the wooden peg, the old wool barn coat hung just as she had left it, a sentinel. She reached out and touched its sleeve, the rough wool like a handshake from the past. Through the glass, the lane was empty now, dust settled, her brother gone. She saw her own face in the reflection, calm, unreadable, one hand still resting on the coat. She let her hand drop from the coat, then walked slowly through the silent rooms. The living room was unchanged, the same worn sofa, the same lamp, but the weight in the air was different. She stopped at the mantel, running a finger along the edge of her mother's photograph.
I kept my promise, Mom. The farm is safe.
She reached into her pocket and unfolded the old will, the paper she had guarded like a heartbeat. She read the closing line aloud, barely above a whisper, her father's words filling the silence.
To my daughter Charlotte, I trust you to keep the land as I kept it for you.
She folded the will again, smaller than a handkerchief, and slid it into her jacket next to her heart.
I'll take care of it, Dad, for both of you.
The coat still hung on its peg, the fields stretched beyond the glass, and for the first time in weeks the house felt like home. The afternoon bled into dusk, the kitchen filling with amber and umber as the sun sank behind the corn. Charlotte stood at the window, her reflection ghosting over the fields, two worlds meeting in the glass. Behind her, the wool coat caught the last daylight, its gray threads glowing like old silver.
Thank you, Dad. I'll keep it safe.
The words drifted into the evening, unanswered but not unheard. She turned from the glass, and the room dimmed to a soft charcoal. Outside, the porch light clicked on, a small sun against the gathering night. The coat remained on its peg, a steady shape in the stillness, the promise sewn into its seams still held. The farm lay quiet under the first stars, the fields dark but whole, and the house held its breath. Inside, the wool coat waited, a silent sentinel through the night, keeping watch over all that was kept. The camera drew back from the window, pulling through the glass until the farmhouse stood small against the night. The porch light burned steady, a single star before the stars. Beyond, the fields stretched into darkness, the fence posts like sentries vanishing into the haze. Inside the kitchen, a lone figure stood at the sill, her shape carved by the dim glow. She did not move, just watched the land that had watched over her since childhood. The Harlow farm sign at the gate caught the starlight, the carved letters unmoved by the wind. Now and then, a rustle in the corn, nothing more. The threat was gone. The coat on its peg held the memory of a man who had seen the future and stitched it into a lining. The night deepened, and the farm settled into a peace that had been hard-won and long awaited. And so it remained, a promise kept in wool and ink under an Iowa sky that had seen it all.